Welcome back to Crazy Horseness, Crazy Equines, Crazy Hippos. But we're playing the Griffins, so hey, we eat those things. So yes, we are playing Equus at War, and we are playing the Griffin Empire here. And hopefully this will be very good. If you like this, obviously if you don't like this is very different than my normal stuff. If you don't like this, obviously you won't watch. But if you do like this, make sure you give this a thumbs up and you post a comment and watch, and we will continue this. No, the channel isn't changing. It just once in a while I do different things. But we'll do a lot. Don't worry, a lot of historical content will still be coming up. I'm never going away from that, but we do other things as well. Calm voice of reason, good. Now, bankers and industrialists, support from Snyder Adele. I wish. Okay. Uncommon focus and the regions. Words of choice or death greater. The army, many officers have become disloyal and treacherous, and something that we cannot accept and tolerate if the empire is to survive. We must purge all disloyal personnel at once, no matter the price. Okay, I think that may be a bit too drastic, so we're going to go dagger in the dark. Okay. Gerlach support. Time is of the essence, thought the Duchess Gabriella. Her little speech gathered support for her cause, but it was still inconclusive. Who will the council elect for the regency? The next matter will be discussed as admittance. Hey, Grand Duke Feather arrived, coming unnoticed by most, as he was fond of traveling. He was to deliver a speech to the council tomorrow, and while he is a pure-blooded noble, Gabriella suspected that Archon's lackeys could persuade him to support their inferiors. Okay. Thus the evening came. The two noble griffins seated in front of each other. The Duchess' opulent dining room. Pleasant chatter was exchanged for over a traditional Featherstonian feast. The dishes were Sonert and okay, I don't know. Thankfully, he refrained from devouring the fish in the primitive way. It was certainly unbecoming to be seen such as Gabrielle was about to make a comment on the latest gossip. She was suddenly interrupted by the normally tight-beaked Grand Duke. Lady Eagleclaw, I do not wish to disrespect your hospitality, but I am keenly aware of your invitation's purpose. This came as no surprise to her, as she made a strong effort to flatter his sensibilities. In fact, he gave her an opening to cut straight to the matter at Claw. Forgive me, Grand Duke, but I believe it is within our mutual interest to stand together against the Archons and their wicked schemes. They can't be trusted to rule our legacy. As Gerlach silently considered his options, she pressed further. Think, what will Grover want? This got his attention as his eyes gleamed at the memory of the late emperor. So it is, Duchess, so it is. Tomorrow, the council's meeting. Gabriel could only smugly listen to Gerlach's speech lambasting the Archons for their irresponsible. This will certainly draw some of the indecisive votes for her regency. Okay. Well, more stability, more political power. Good. This makes me want, because of the trains and whatnot, makes me want to have a more economical, developmental type situation here with this game. I think one of my criticisms of Hearts of Iron 4 is that it's trying to be EU 20th century. An EU 20th century game, and where you have Vicky is just the 19th century, and then you have um, uh, Crusader kings being the Middle Ages, and then the abortive Imperator Rome trying to do that for the classical era. Okay, daggers in the dark. You can do that for the 20th century, but World War II is such a focused thing. And if you design a game properly for it, because you look at this is where I disagree with World Ablaze mod, is you can do things like have command economies, Keynesian economics, that the major negatives of those won't be felt until, after the period of the roughly 10 years that it's set in. So, and yeah, in 10 years, you can build a lot of railway. You can actually do so. But really, economies and structural economies, not just, um, you know, uh, pop up economies. I mean, the idea of railways, highways, large engineering projects, that takes a lot out of, takes a lot of time. And America really is the only one in World War II that is able to do that kind of work in that short time period. Russia really can't. And I know we're back to talking history, guys, here for a moment, away from My Little Ponies. Russia, prior to the starting of World War II, is building up its industry, most assuredly. And then at the start of the invasion, Russia moves its industry. And yes, it is building some new industry as going along, but it's not popping up huge new things in the sense, you can basically build tanks literally in a field if it isn't raining too much mud or too much snow. And for a while, they sort of do that kind of stuff. Is that they literally take, whether it's tanks or rifles or I don't know, boot making machinery, and load it on trains, drive it east, stop at a location, unload the machinery literally into a field, and they also transported the workers with it. It's not that they just did the machines, and offloaded the workers and say, yeah, get to work. And maybe in the field in the other side of the railroad is where they start building the buildings that are going to house the machinery eventually. So that way it's, set up to the railroad to either transport boots or rifles or whatever. So there is some forethought as into their location. And so that then they're able to construct a building. Now, buildings aren't the hardest thing to construct. And depending on the structure, some of it, especially like in Russia, you just need to keep the snow off and the rain off and whatnot. And you can build, you just build boots, bring in leather, and you have sewing machines and cutting machines, and you crank out boots. And you need lots of boots to keep, a million-plus man army, moving around, especially when you're talking Russia, where you have winter, so harsh of a thing. So boots are a real war need, and in large capacity. And now tanks, that needs properly a specialized building with, generally speaking, some sort of built-in cranes to be able to pick up and lift heavy objects and move them around, the tanks, or a tank turret or whatever else you need some of that kind of stuff built in. So it takes a little bit more. Now in the U.S., recently been watching some films on aluminum for World War II, and the U.S. builds um, in the middle of like I don't I don't in a place like either Oklahoma or Kansas or wherever, one of the big flat states out in the middle of the United States. I forget which one it was. They start after America enters the war. They start building a huge aluminum um, processing plant in which literally they have they can roll a piece of aluminum that is 1 mile long on their rolling machine that they have in this thing that goes back and forth to flatten it out. That so this building is more than 1 mile long, and it's huge, and they show it in its construction phase. And this isn't the only thing, because you have Kaiser building whole new shipyards on the west coast of the United States. So this isn't just expanding previous shipyards, it's building whole new shipyards that are then very rapidly building ships. So normally you don't have, within the time scope of World War II, and if we're looking at the actual war, it's roughly about 5 years, because September 39 to um, April or whatever, 45. So it's roughly about 5 years. And if you're looking at the game period when you start at 36, which I agree is the best start date for the game, you're looking at roughly a 9, 10 year period. And so you can build up industry, and Germany's doing it, actually building industry and not just building more tanks in your factories. Yeah, Britain is building a little bit more industry. France, not really beforehand. I mean, they may be upping production, but they're not so much building more industry at the leading up to the war. But that's very different. Where here with a game like this, um, I could really see, because I could see this being a long period ongoing thing. Um, you need better mechanics in this for economies, I think, for something like this. Hello, Turnlow, how you doing? Make a I don't we don't even hardly have a coast, and this is a puppet state that we may eventually get control of, the Grand Duchy of Featheresia. So I don't know that we're going to do that, or no. So yeah, we're not looking at probably doing that. Okay, so now we're going to get support from this guy here. Friends of the irate Arcanite reputation can make or break a griffin. The Duchess knows well. Many nobles left disgraced once the attention of unflattering comments landed on them, regardless of whether they're substantial truth. Which is why he decided to use the same tactics against the Archons, although Eros and Porteus were unfortunately too beloved and incorruptible. The same cannot be said for their weakest link, Aaron, which opened the secret path. Okay. Gain stability, political power. Oh boy. Yeah, Sing. Yeah, that's sorry to hear that you lost some soldiers. I know there's a lot of ongoing tensions with Pakistan and other places regarding India. Okay, summer sun celebration. Pony. Okay, ponies. Crystal Fair. Okay, good. We're working our way through this. Oh, do we also have to do this too, I guess? Because, okay, so this requires that. Okay, I didn't read far enough, so we do have to do that too. That just looks like a bunch of bad options. Convincing the neither Adele, proper conduct, nobility, right, okay. Okay, annexed, capitulated. So Rosewood Order. Now, do we take this time to silent work bird? That'll get us more political. Friendly preacher, less political power. We could use more. Okay. Slots. Okay, this would intelligent network gain factor. Okay, we're gonna get more political power coming in. So let's spend this now while we have it. May put us into a deficit, but later on. Let's look here. Okay, so we're going to go with concentrated. Factories. Okay, of things that never happened. An interesting book was published today of things that never happened by Parasolostale. It follows the life of a character simply known as Robeson, a Republican terrorist who has been ordered by his superiors to assassinate Wingbardian King. Grima attempts to fail. Okay. All right. I don't know. Whatever. Well, I don't know if revenge is the right answer. But okay, the Arab Republic somewhere down here. I'm guessing Arabian Republic. I don't know. Okay, well, whatever. Saddle Arabia. I got the saddle thing. As they say, if you seek revenge, dig two graves. Keep that in mind. Low pony power. Does that mean political power? Probably. Or is there something enchanted tools? All right, so we've got enchanted tools. Well, let's do enchanted machines. It's basically manpower. Oh, okay, manpower, but ponies. Thank you, Lum. Pony power. Okay. Hello, uh, Cone. Tao. I'm butchering that. Sorry. Um, I'm enjoying the mod. It's kooky. Um, I think it's going okay. I'm playing as the Griffin Empire, but yeah, good to have you here. Nice to have some new people around. New daring do book after many months of anticipation. AK Yearling has finally released Daring Do and the Changeling Spectre, a thrilling espionage action thriller. Okay. Um, that's supposed to be J.K. Rowling or something like that. I don't know. Renamed. Just mostly experiencing at this point as opposed to trying to play it to win or anything. Okay. The Barrack Revolt. Ferdinand Donclaw sat in his office located in one of the innumerable military bases that dotted the capital of the Griffonian Empire. Ferdinand considered himself a patriot, and in the sense that was true, he did love the empire in his own strange way, and it was precisely because of that love that he had rebelled. In his mind, the empire simply couldn't survive without a radical change in the status quo. Could only an already weakened empire survive with a mere child in charge? With the nobles circling around him like vultures? No, something had to be done. Ferdinand knew that his chances of success were slim, that he would most likely just go down in history as another nameless traitor to the empire, a fool whose futile rebellion was quickly crushed. Reports started to trickle in. His forces were converging on the imperial palace as soon as they would be placed, or as soon as they would face the palace guard in direct combat. Ferdinand could do nothing but wait and hope that his soldiers would or could match the ferocity of the hardened defenders that they now faced. The next few minutes would decide the fate of the entire empire and, by extension, the course of history itself. I study history, people here, and I know most of you know that. One of the best. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm just going to call it Cone. Sorry. Um, Cone. Yeah, thanks. Me and a few friends talked on Discord yesterday, sort of around not this specific topic, obviously, but forms of government and things. And I know people nowadays. I know there's a lot of fanboyism for various forms of government in games. Reestablish the Byzantine Empire or something else like that, but they really, in real life, are communists or anarchists or whatever other radical nut jobbery. They don't really mean it. It's just memeing in games. But if you have an ideology of, this is where Gamer talks about things again, of emperors and kings and whatnot, to lead a revolt like this, whether you want to call this a palace revolt or um, a coup against the state, all based upon what might happen. The empire simply couldn't survive without a radical state. Couldn't, in his mind. All you're doing is as he's saying here, is causing the problems that you're complaining about. You're destabilizing things even more. Okay, soldiers stormed the palace. Now I guess revolt is crushed, so we'll lose 1,000 pony power. We have 37, so I guess we can afford that. Okay, Cone, yeah, I'm glad you're good with that. Grand Galloping Gala. They got some nice alliteration here, that's for sure. Sometimes I'm catching it, sometimes I'm not really, but okay. The traitor's death. Ferdinand Donclaw, one of the emperor's more recent traitor. The empire's recent publicly executed in the capital today, with the events drawing little attention from the rest of the empire. So staying silent throughout. Yeah, Bob died a mundane death. Good riddance. Yeah. Because the whole concept of this, and again, like I say, I've studied a lot of history. And so I'm extrapolating from that. I have no idea. I could, some of you guys have played this before. But the idea that you have a child on the throne definitely is a weakness to inherited forms of government. Now, that is why you have regencies. And you have no idea. Okay, Griffin Liberation, that's pause. When Civil War ends, okay. Army, okay. All right. You're like I say, it's a weakness of government, but no, I guess I don't know what to say here, because yeah, at some point, if you feel the evil, wrong people have captured the air, the young child that's once they become of age are going to become the ruler. Yeah, you may feel obliged to rescue that child, but that's a big leap, and you need to be very clear about that. With Donclaw, yeah, he was a hypocrite and a militarist. When you choose to revolt, you get the focus tree revolving around turning into a nationalistic junta. Okay, yeah, so looking at that, bankers and industrialists, okay. And so unless you're a revolutionary, and always be very concerned, because whenever you decide to have a revolution, you don't know what that revolution is going to bring about. Revolution might, I'm like at the moment I'm thinking about the Russian Revolution, of what 1917, 1918, as it then morphs into a civil war. You have the sort of the Mensheviks and all these people that are the Tsar is leading us into into this war that's killing huge numbers of Russians, and it's destroying our nation, and we need to get out of it. And however much you might be a Democrat, wanting a pluralistic democracy, or you just want to get rid of a tyrant, and the Tsar, or whatever it is, you may end up with the Bolsheviks taking over and creating, in my opinion, however bad Russia was, let's say, in 1913, the year before the starting of the World War One. However much there was still serfdom, however much there was, um, nobles are better because of their birth and they have special privileges in life and whatever. However bad the peasantry, and at times, I don't know that it's anybody's fault. Just, weather goes bad and there's famine. And yeah, oh, but the people over on the other side of the empire should, do everything they can for, yeah. Well, no, society hadn't, even in 1913, hadn't developed. They were still, railroads were still, yeah, okay, yeah, 70, 80 years old by that point, but there was still lots of places that it was hard to move huge amounts of food effectively and whatnot. So, yeah, so however bad the Russian Empire was, the Bolsheviks were 10 times worse in the amounts of deaths, and not just deaths of combatants that were, violently opposing the revolution, fighting in the wars or whatever like that, or spies and traitors, actual spies and traitors, actual saboteurs caught, not just pointing at somebody because production was too low and blaming them, but actual, enemies of the state actually doing stuff. They're killing off of so much of the population is so much worse than even the height of the Russia's war with Germany that was killing off people, putting too much energy into fighting that war and not feeding people in the homeland. It gets so much worse, and I know. I'm sorry. I just have to jump into some of these things. I know this is just a silly mod, and that's cool and all, but if you are a revolutionary in this day, in any day and age, and you can be one now, and feel wherever you are. And I look, you may be, and I mean a revolutionary is somebody that wants to overthrow the current system. And so maybe if we're talking about the CCP in China, I'm like, yay, let's if you could actually overthrow the CCP in China, yay. But you might get something 10 times worse than the current. Not okay. It's hard to get worse than the worst possible one that we've so far had in humanity, which was the CCP under Mao and the Cultural Revolution and whatnot. In those days, that's killing the most of your own citizens, award, achievement, Guinness Book of World Records ever in the history of mankind goes to them in sheer numbers, and Pol Pot in sheer percentages of his national population of approximately a third of his population down in Cambodia. Those are the sort of Guinness Book of World Record holders, I would say, um, for the amount of evil and destruction you can do. So yeah, but the current CCP isn't doing that. I'm not saying they, if they felt they needed to, wouldn't go back to that Cultural Revolution and kill just as many or more people. There's more people now in China than there was back whenever. But um, you know, uh, so when you stage a revolution, and you might get bad things just because it's unsuccessful, like this guy gets the chop, because and 1,000 or so of his people get taken out. But and then you might have other nasty reactions because you've staged that and failed. But even if the revolution succeeds in bringing down the current regime, social order, system, you may end up getting either something completely opposite. You think you're doing a left wing revolution and you end up getting a bunch of Nazis or fascists in power, because of the revolution, or you may think you're just going to bring democracy to Egypt, and oh no, you're just bringing in Islamic government to Egypt. That's what happened. I mean, that's basically what happened, when they got rid of Mubarak, and that's also what happened when they got rid of the Shah in Iran. It was a lot of. I got some special training years and years ago, One of the trainers was some. I'm not going to go into too much. Was an Iranian who had a government job, um, a very nasty government job, shall we say? And so I met and talked to some of these people and were trained by them because of things. So I know people or knew. I mean, he was older, 20, 30 years older than me way back when. So I'm sure he's passed by now. And he got out um, of Iran. So I knew people that, yeah, this guy, he knew Ayatollah Khomeini. I mean, he had, well, I guess I'll say, he had Ayatollah Khomeini in one of his cells for a while and had talked to Ayatollah Khomeini quite extensively. Um, so I knew people at the center, I mean, they weren't like friends, they were just sort of trainers that I spent sort of a long weekend with, if you will, kind of thing, getting training. Um, so I knew people at the center of the Iranian revolution on the anti-revolution side, but it starts out as wanting to throw out this dictator because the Shah is trying to modernize, westernize Iran, and he's doing in a part such a good job. A bunch of the modernized, westernized people want, well, why do we want this corrupt dictator? Let's have a pluralistic democracy. Oops, you end up with the fundamentalist Iranian government. So, which is, you know, in the opposite direction, and I would say worse for everybody in Iran, except for the extremist nut jobs. So if you hold revolutionary views, and even if you don't do anything about them, you just hold them, and if you, oh yeah, they're overthrowing these people, they're, as I'm not saying voting into a different political party, because that's still within the structural government that you're talking about, whatever, voting for legitimate parties, whatever they may be within the system. And then they may change laws, whether for the better or for the worse. That's still within the system. But if you're like cheering on somebody who's blowing up a rail, I'm just seeing the trains drive by, blowing up a railway or doing other things like we're seeing here in America right now, and you're cheering that on from either side, even you want that to happen so then you can do the counter revolution or something. It may be a hell of a lot worse than what you are fighting against, initially. And so, like I say, however bad, and I'm talking in the 19th century, not Ivan the Terrible or something like that, but even that we could argue. However bad the Russian czars were in the 19th and early 20th century, and however bad Russia was, what happens under Stalin, and I know Stalin might not be a foregone conclusion. You might have had a Trotskyite win or something, but I don't know that it would have been significantly better. Might not have been quite as terrible, but still, I would say much worse than the worst of the czars. Yeah, be careful of wanting to tear down. And there was so many people that were cheering because I remember because the Shah leaves Iran to get medical treatment for his cancer, and that's when the revolution breaks out in Iran. And I remember watching that as a kid. That's much earlier than when I later got training um, and met people. Um, that um, you know there were so many people in the West. Oh yeah, dictator falls, dictator down, evil man down, and then oh yeah, cleaning out the people with righteous rulers, of the Islamic thing, and then oh shit, they go completely bad. Okay, let's get back to this. What is Cone say? Funny thing about Reichspakt here is that vessels that revolt around you, most of them can be taken the title of emperor alongside the younger, giving him different points of views and sometimes even options for him to become a ruler once he comes of age. Okay, easy to sell the idea of communism to the suppressed Russian peasants. but not desirable system for the rulers, as they lost most of the as they not desirable for the rulers, as they lost most of the control. Yeah, beam slam. Now, if you notice, Marx believes that, and of course he's the. I mean, there is communism or communalism in those. I'm saying those are two different things, communism and communalism, but it's very similar things. Um, Before Marx, and we can even find either ancient, the classical world or medieval world and whatnot, similar sorts of things popping up like that at times. So yeah, Marx doesn't come up with it entirely on his own. But if we look at Marxist communism, even he thinks it needs to come through sort of a industrialized stage, where in fact, basically all the communist revolutions that have really been successful, that really taken deep hold, have all happened in pre-industrialized or early industrializing countries like Russia, Imperial Russia, China, Latin America, Africa, is selling it to peasants who are doing non-industrialized, meaning non-mechanical farming. Peasants that are using muscle power, whether human or animal power. That is almost all of the cases where communism wins, is in an agrarian society that is particularly known that the overwhelming majority of the people are uneducated. They may or may not be able to read and write in a basic, without a symbology, realizing what a stop sign says and what a, read the idea of drugstore and bar or whatever in their local language, not, as opposed to just symbols that they can actually read a little bit, but in the idea that they don't read the newspaper every day. They're not well read. They don't understand things outside of it. Now, obviously, in some of the cases we're talking about, no, they had no, literacy at all. But even where there was a base level of literacy in regions, they were mostly with people that hadn't heard other things preached. And so it was preaching a new utopia. So they had no real understanding of that it wasn't going to work. Those are the only times that communism actually sort of seems to work. Question. Hello, Wet Eyes Ocean Machine. How you doing? Trivia Mark's name in this mod is Carmel Marks. Ah, okay. Cool. Okay. I gotcha. Caramel Marks. I get that. Very interesting. So yeah, let's continue with the game. But I just feel I gotta talk on some of these topics here. And hey, you know what? Science fiction and fantasy have been and still is, though normally nowadays away from the big media studios, a wonderful place to examine the human condition like this in abstract way, in ways that are abstracted from your current, I don't know, I don't want to say prejudices, your current interests, meaning you're setting up models of things that are set in other worlds, other realities. So it's not like you're not identifying by your side because, oh, hey, you're a Christian, so you're against atheists. No, you just two people with two different religious beliefs, and you personally hold no stake in which side wins by what you believe. You're just seeing how it's playing out. And I'm not, some of the, fantasy and science fiction writers have, different views than mine as to what is good. It's not like I'm saying that's always, I agree with how they're playing out these morality plays and tales, but it is a good way to sort of bring it out on its own. Yeah, but there were also oh well, the intellectual communists. Yeah, they're the ones. But I'm saying they convince the masses is what happens. Is a woman as well. Oh, a woman. Okay. Yes. Also in this universe, equalism is bigger reach than vanilla communists. Okay. Stalin was a peasant from Baku area. Well, I thought he was from. I thought he was Georgian. Now that doesn't mean there wouldn't be Georgians living in Baku just because of jobs, over on that other side. Yeah. Hey, thank you for following. And anybody new here, please hit the follow button on um, Twitch or the subscribe button on YouTube. I'm live on both, whichever one you want to watch. I am getting the chat from either one, and so I generally tend to try to read it so people know what's going on. Okay, the Imperial Industrialist. The Duchess walked through the busy halls of, not even going to try to pronounce it. Her thoughts were on legacy of the empire. I will say this Kron's doll or whatever, they do a good job at sort of twisting words around into other sorts of things. Other sorts of similar, but other sorts of sounds and whatnot work sort of well. The empire may last for centuries or not even a decade, but it is the cultural achievements will never be forgotten. But where the state comes and goes, the inhabitants are eternal. Okay, my dear Gabrielle, bring my humble workplace. No hint of irony, complaining. Exclusive from Skyfall, a favorite promise for me. Okay. Predictable carry on in his greed. You think he made enough? I love the lore that they're bringing. That they're going into lore, but you need an editor to bring this down to more bite-sized pieces. Ever predictable carrying in his greed. You think he has made enough in his lifetime, but sometimes never. Taxes, subsidies. Karen is a decent griffin once you get to know him. Okay, so we are getting more political. Oh, and we get a civilian factory. Very good. We needed that. We are playing the Griffin Empire. Wet Eyes Ocean Machine. Hello, MV Hib? Mahiv? I don't know. Is this historically accurate? Well, quite possibly it is if they're channeling this in from some other reality, or if now see it has to be some other reality, I would say, because whether you want to call them animals or people that only have hooves really couldn't operate things. So my little, I could see the idea of morphing a pony somehow into an intelligent being, but you've got to give them some sort of manipulatable hands to be able to manipulate things like machinery or drive an airplane or shoot a gun. Just hooves won't do it. So, bird people or, griffins or hippogriffs that have some sort of hands-like thing might be able to do this. So this has to be some other sort of reality. I can't see it working even just on some other planet. But so if they're channeling this in, yes, this could be historically accurate. But I don't know if this actually does exist somewhere. So that wait, but so what? Just because I'm keeping these episodes somewhat small, we're going to be ending this episode here, but not the live stream. So those live keep hanging out. I want to thank everybody who's made it this far. We'll be continuing with more Hearts of Iron of some sort or flavor next time.